How's it going, everyone? It's your favorite apostates. I'm McKay.
I'm Jordan.
And we got kind of a lot to get to today. So let's start off.
We're jumping right in.
We'll jump right in. Let's start off with today's sponsor, Aura. You or I could go to any data broker's website right this second and buy anyone's data for just a few bucks. And it's completely legal.
That's sketchy. It's on us to protect ourselves on the wild, wild west that is the internet. And that's why we use Aura, today's sponsor.
Aura keeps you safe online by doing all the hard work for you. They will identify data brokers who are selling your information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf.
Give Aura just a few weeks and you'll stop seeing your information on these sites when you search yourself, which will also lead to less spam.
They also continuously monitor the dark web and alert you if they find any of your personal information exposed. They're also going to let you know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access any of your credit cards or bank accounts.
Plus, they give up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen.
The Aura app also has a VPN with over 100 virtual locations. Does your current VPN have all these other features on top of just being a VPN?
You can go to our link, which is aura.com/JordanMcKay to try 14 days for free, and that will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed.
So thank you again to Aura for sponsoring today's episode. Obviously, from the title here, you know it's going to be a little rough, right? That should go without saying.
Buckle
in. We have been debating doing an update on this since the last one came out, essentially, because we found information that we were like, I don't know if it's okay to share this.
So we've sat with it for a long time, and we've decided to go about it in a way that we feel is the most ethical in this kind of situation, which does omit some information. I didn't look up anything inherently private, so
we're not going to be sharing anything inherently private either.
No, just full disclaimer, everything that we will be sharing in this video is on the internet and accessible to the public with minimal research involved, if you know what you're looking for. If you're me,
if you're
it's
Jordan,
going to take you
easy.
Hours. But if you're like a well-researched individual, these are things that you can find. This is not like, we hired some private investigator and figured shit out. This is just like what is available on the internet, which that is the unfortunate thing about the way that the internet currently operates is private information, ours included. Right. It happens. People figure out where we live. People send us inappropriate shit. It's just what it is. So...
Right.
No, it's not pleasant, but I'm also not doxing anyone. I'm not putting out any private location data or anything that would potentially put somebody in harm's way. Again, this is all just public information.
Essentially, just to catch everybody up, we're going to kind of go back and catch add in some things that we missed before. But essentially, where this all began was us and a lot of people on the internet were noticing that after a bit of a hiatus, a prominent YouTuber and influencer from the 2010s kind of came back onto the scene, and now she is in her Jesus arc, and she has hitched her wagon to, or more, this person has hitched their wagon to her and her very large platform by the name of Brighton Fairly. And there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on about it. A lot of people have kind of noticed some parallels between the way that Jodi Hildebrandt latched on to Ruby Frankie.
Not their criminal behavior, just their on-camera behavior.
On-camera behavior. And
we're not implying anybody's a criminal.
No. But it's just some weird stuff. And Brighton Fairly is an even more interesting case because she's, I don't know, there's a lot of weirdness about who she presents herself as and who she says that she is that doesn't seem to be verifiable, especially when it pertains to her professional status, which is where I think a lot of us are most concerned about, because when you are a professional, you should be able to back up your credentials with actual diplomas and certifications, which we've yet to find in regard to Britain. So that's where we're starting things off.
And that's where the Jody and Ruby parallels kind of extend, because it's interesting because Jody was a therapist who was actually licensed, whose license went on probation, and then did a lot of sketchy shit outside of the scope of her license, which is against the ethical standards which we therapists agree to abide by when we enter the profession. And so just another really weird parallel between these situations. And this is not the only YouTuber who like makes a like hard right turn into like Jesus freak kind of content. Like this happens with a lot of people. It's kind of like an interesting kind of YouTuber phenomenon, like where people just kind of pivot into like Christian, intensely religious content after making like just very stereotypical YouTube content for a while. So that's probably its own discussion, but I think it's worth mentioning that there's like some weirdness there.
And I just want to get out of the way right out of the gate, like both Brighton and Meredith have experienced various types of abuse. We unilaterally do not deny the fact that they have experienced these kinds of abuse, and they use their experiences in, you know, the content that they're creating. So I don't want to discount that by any means.
Contrary to Ruby and Jody, I feel like some of the things that they do put out there are actually helpful. It's just the other information surrounding it that is a little bizarre and makes me kind of uneasy personally. Yeah.
And a lot of it is subject to criticism. They're really hardline pro-life. Mm-hmm. They are, at least Britain claims to be a Messianic believer, which seems to be kind of like a low-profile way of saying that she's a Messianic Jew, which, if you know, you know. We'll kind of get into that, but
that is its own problematic thing that probably needs its own video, but we will touch on it in this video.
Anyway, let's back up to where things began. I feel like we didn't really review that bit a lot, where Britain came into the picture with Meredith.
So let's just get our timelines straight. We're long-winded, but I promise you the information will be interesting. So Meredith posts a really weird fucking video with the two of them talking about things very bizarre, sets off alarm bells for the two of us, right? So we make a video reaction. Meredith makes that video beginning of July 2024. Our reaction video gets posted July 10th, 2024. So very quickly after Meredith posted that initial video. And it was gaining a lot of traction on like TikTok especially, where people were like, what is happening to Meredith? What is going on with Meredith? We post that very elaborate video. Go watch it if you need a recap.
It's on this side.
This side. This side. I don't know what side we're on. We talk about some fishy things. Like some fishy things we see on her website, some concerns about not being able to find her credentials, kind of the weirdness around the accent, which could potentially have an explanation, but also is still kind of weird. Just weird mannerisms and interactions between the two of them. And then unexpectedly, we get a response from Meredith herself that McKay will post here. So Meredith says this. Feel free to pause to read in response to that initial video, which caught us both by surprise, quite honestly.
We did not expect her to ever see that. It was more talking to people that were just on the internet, right?
We're tiny YouTubers in comparison to Meredith. Like, I did not expect to be on her radar at all. So she is clearly very offended by most of the things we said, and threw out some kind of intense, not like accusations, but like
Kinda,
that I just didn't appreciate. Like it obviously came from a place of anger, and that's when she responded, and so I get that. But then we followed up with a video, our reaction to Meredith's reaction to the video, like reaction,
response,
inception going on here. July 24th. So just like 2 weeks, not even after that, we post that response video. Don't see anything else from Meredith in that time. She at least didn't dignify us with a response that time. I don't know if she watched it. Somebody sent me a screenshot on Instagram. Somebody found Britain's Pinterest. And like around that time, somebody had said that she was posting something about like how to deal with narcissists, which had me like dying.
Which she kind of made reference to.
Yeah. So could be related, could be not. Like, if that's what she wants to believe, it. Okay.
You
do you, girl. That's fine. So that was where we got involved in this whole mess.
Right.
A couple of the things that I found. I wanted to try to pinpoint this timeline a little bit and kind of see where we could trace back the beginnings of this stuff too. Just like for further understanding so we can see how we got here, right? So Meredith's doing a lot of religious content before Brighton even comes on the scene. She was really involved with Bethel for a little while, which like has its own controversies.
Yeah.
Very Christian, total Christian content pivot. Like every song, every post, every story, like
all Jesus related.
Getting involved politically and like pro-life stuff. Like everything is Jesus coded, which like whatever is fine. But it does set off alarm bells for me when it's extreme, when it's like an extreme pivot, right? So she's doing like faith promoting content way back in 2021. She has a podcast with her friend Stassi, and they're doing like very Jesus filled podcasts talking about churches, talking about baptisms, her family members getting baptized, like all this stuff. And so faith promoting content was there, right? But then suddenly December of 2021 is the last podcast that she films with this friend named Stassi. And they don't go on to do any other podcasts. They had done like a decent amount up to this point. Kicked content at that point. Like Meredith went on to do 2 different episodes where I think she tried to rename the podcast to something entirely different. And nobody mentioned anything about like what happened between her and Stassi. So I find the December 2021 timeline interesting because in February of 2022, so just 2 months later, from her video where she talks about Brighton's book on her channel, she says in February of 2022, she meets with Brighton over Zoom.
Last year at this time is when this book came across my computer screen, and I actually ordered it on Amazon, and then I got on Zoom with the author and she read it to me. And so Brighton Fairley, I call her Brit.
So that is the earliest point of contact that I can identify that is public for the 2 of them. Maybe they've been involved way before then.
Hard to say.
Who knows? But that is like the most public facing content that I can find was dating back to February 2022, which a few months later, June 2022, Meredith leaves a like very passionate review, which McKay will put on screen, of Brighton's book, Choosing Life, which is like a pro-life fiction novel.
I think a lot of people have speculated that Brighton writes herself as the character.
I haven't read the book. I ain't gonna read it.
We have no idea, but
Meredith leaves a review summer. So presumably they're in contact and they've made reference to like Zoom meetings. So I think these are like group faith promoting Zoom type meetings. Can't find anything about that. Can't find any record of it anywhere. That's June. September, it's after these 2 videos that we've done that I discover, someone actually sent it to me, a podcast that Meredith and Brighton did together starting in September of 2022. Focus is like sex and dating. It's, to me as an agnostic, it's weird to listen to. I just don't, it's not my content. Jam, okay.
Then, whatever.
But there's like a few times where there's like weird statements being made that just like to the out of context person trying to put pieces together is like.
This got me thinking actually about sex and marriage and that Song of Solomon kind of sex. And I got to thinking, Meredith and I, it was about 4:00 in the morning. I got to be honest with you. And we're taking care of some things that we had to take care of at 4:00 in the morning. And I go, Meredith, my God, we've got to stop thinking of sex as included. We need to start thinking of as reserved. And she goes, Britt, that was not what I was expecting to come out of your mouth at 4:00 in the morning. And I'm like, Meredith, I'm a sex and trauma counselor. Like, I'm thinking about this. Okay. So we need to rebrand.
So I don't know. That's just awkward to me. Maybe it's the Zoom thing. Like maybe they do their Zoom calls at 4 a.m.
I don't know. It just sounds really specific. And at the very least, it just demonstrates that their relationship is like very intertwined.
Very intertwined.
Like I'm not doing stuff with my besties at 4 a.m. as an adult, like, you know, when I was a kid,
That's one thing.
That late of that is like some extremely involved friendship.
And from my perspective, it's almost like they're going to find this offensive if they watch this, and that's fine. But it's almost giving like emotional immaturity to me. Like it's giving very like giggly, girly. Like I'm all for being giggly with the girls, okay? But like I'm approaching 30 years old. I don't stay up with my friends until 4 a.m. Like the age dynamic is weird. Is there a potential power differential with the therapeutic relationship also being an issue? Like that I just found bizarre. So there's only 3 episodes of this podcast. It's called This Is Kingdom Podcast. It's still on Spotify. They might pull it down after this because I'm sure they don't like that I found it.
That happened with the website.
Down. They pulled it off and it's still private, so you can't access it. And so who knows if that'll still be there, but I kept that clip for you. If you'd like to go listen to the other episodes, it's just giving bizarre. Like it's throwing up weirdness for me. That's just me. If you feel differently, that's fine. So that's September 2022, as they've got this little podcast going, right? February 2023 is when Meredith posts a video review of her book on her channel, where she raves extensively about this book and how life-changing it is and how incredible and how amazing the author is. And it just is and that's where I connected the dots with when they met the first time, because she talks about it in that video. But I just thought that was weird.
Yeah. Well, weren't there little little clips of Zoom meetings in one of those videos?
Something like that, yeah.
But it was just B-roll essentially.
Yeah. And I couldn't find anything where it would be this is a girls group where we get together and read scripture. Right. I couldn't find anything like that.
Meet the author kind of
situation. I don't know. In terms of Meredith's social media, it's all still Jesus-y stuff, but she has a link right now in her bio to something called The Well, which is from what I can understand, a religious kind of community, not necessarily a religion, but just faith-promoting community that's led by an influencer named Sarah Elson. Very intense, gives very rigid, gives very scrupulous, in my opinion. But if that's your vibe, then that's your vibe. But I can't access, it wouldn't let me create an account. So when I go to, because I'm curious what's happening in here, right? So I'm going to check it out. So I try to create an account to join this little well community, and what I get is no plans available. So I can't join to see what's going on in there. So I'm maybe the Zoom connection is coming from here. Maybe the Zoom groups are happening in here, but I can't get in there. So why do you have a link in your bio to something that people can't even access?
Dead.
It's a dead link. They've clearly closed this, or she has a massive error, which I think she charges for this. So that's why this says no plans available, is because she charges for certain aspects of this community.
What does that sound like?
It sounds like a grift.
Sounds like Moms of Truth.
Sounds like a fucking grift, right? So I can't even get in to access it. That's sus to me. That's weird. I don't know. And then the only other link that she has on social media in her bio right now is a donate link to the Christian Broadcasting Network.
The tithes aren't sufficient, I guess. If you are familiar with the videos that we put out over the summer, you'll know that there were some weird things that we were noticing. Particularly Britain's name was one of the very specific ones, because it is so on the nose that her name is Britain, and she says that she comes from a place where there's fog or whatever the hell she was saying.
And tea,
which obviously. And she does an accent.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes. So those were the two things. You have to watch it, because I was losing my fucking mind over the accent. What is going on with the fucking accent? Please, I am so weirded out. It's crazy.
Because if you're unfamiliar, let me play 2 clips from the same podcast really quick, and you can know what I'm talking about.
Hi, my name is Britt, and I am the author of Choosing Life. My master's and doctoral studies are in crisis and trauma counseling, and I specialize in sexual trauma and Christ-centered healthy sexuality. Meredith and her precious soul likes to call me a grace pourer, so please if you haven't. So this got me thinking, okay, when visiting Disney World, you can actually make this really special date with your one and only. For those of you without kids, or those who do have kids, you're going to pay for a really expensive Disney style sitter in order to have this moment. Okay. But everybody has the option of watching the fireworks.
It's almost like the accent is part of the rehearsal of like what she says repeatedly.
Right.
And then when she's in casual conversation, she forgets.
And I'm going to call Commonwealthers out right now. None of y'all can fucking decide if it's accurate or not.
Y'all were all
but
over the
everybody
place.
was all over the place and saying like,
maybe it's fading.
This sounds weird.
Yeah.
It sounds weird that somebody would be from the UK and for one, have an accent where they have speaking mannerisms like this.
Mm-hmm.
And two, that their accent would be fading in and out like that.
Right.
Which I agree. I thought that was rather weird.
Rather bizarre. And it seems to happen in like every video we've watched.
Right. So after we posted the second one, we went digging.
And part of what initiated that process when we were doing research for the first video is like, you know, I'm no like researcher pro expert by any means. Like I've learned a thing or two, this being part of what we do, but by no means am I an expert. And so it kind of astounded me when I started researching and this woman had like virtually no internet presence. Nothing. Like I got everything would link back to her book, which was under that same name, and her website. And beyond that, I could find nothing else. There was nothing.
Right.
No social media. I try like, you know, she has like a very tiny Instagram account that has like 3 followers. And then she also has like we talked about it in the last video, like a Fairly Babies thing, which I think coincides with maybe like her alleged nonprofit stuff or like her Christian ministry organization stuff. But like, that's the only like social media presence I could find. Meredith doesn't tag her in anything.
And for someone who's doing like humanitarian work, I find that extremely, for one, extremely odd, and two, extremely unlikely, right?
Very bizarre.
Just to jog everybody's memory, in the bio, this is on her
This
in
is
her
on
book.
her YouTube.
On her YouTube. It reads, Britt Fairley, author of Choosing Life, Messianic believer, chooser of life, lover of Jesus, daughter, sister, mom, friend, medically minded, ministry inclined, cheeky and redeemed. Britt is a crisis and trauma counselor dedicated to serving underprivileged new moms and babies in a developing country. She is passionate about pouring Jesus' grace over teens, especially on the beach. Join Britt's book club and candid conversation about teen topics as Bridget Jameson and her peers navigate fluttery first love, relationships, communication, intimacy, premarital sex, unexpected pregnancy, life, abortion, abuse, adoption, teen parenthood, and ultimately God's beautiful plan for sexuality in our lives.
So I want to highlight a few things in there. Messianic believer is not something that I'm deducing. That's literally words straight out of her mouth. Okay. Just number one. Who the hell says medically minded?
Right.
I know a lot of people, like I have a lot of friends in the medical field. I have a lot of friends in, you know, therapy adjacent, in the therapy field, in social work directly. And I have never in my life heard anyone say anything like medically minded. Or I have a degree in the medical sciences. Never in my life.
Yeah. It's giving pseudoscience.
It's giving weirdness.
Chiropractic.
Like, I feel like if I had a degree in something like biology or like pre-med or something like that, I would just say that. Medical sciences makes it sound like you're trying to fluff it up.
Right. And she's made reference to doctoral studies.
Yes.
But so would you not
I had speculated on a like graduate project that was her DBT website that I theorized.
So would you not want to kind of like tout those credentials?
And she calls herself, like in this bio, and even Meredith has called her this exactly, a crisis and trauma counselor. She's also called herself like a something sex-related counselor or therapist or something in that realm in the podcast. I would have to go back and listen to it, so don't quote me on that specifically. But inconsistency around like what the counseling is and like where it comes from. And You don't need me to lecture you anymore at this point on why that is an issue, right? Like, there are sketchy people out there who do sketchy shit. And I'm not saying that Britain is one of those people, but there are plenty of them out there. And so part of the safeguards that we use as a society is licensing and ethical requirements. Like, if you wanted to look up my license, it would take you about 2 minutes. It would take you about hard. 2 minutes, and anybody could do it. Like, I work in Utah. You pull up Utah's licensing. That's how quick that goes. And that's there by design. Like, this is for any physician that you see, any therapist you see, any practitioner in the medical field to verify that they are licensed, to see if they have unethical behavior attached to them, if they've been disciplined for anything. Like, going back to Jody, that's how we figured out Jody was put on probation, right? Like, that's attached to her license. Those things are in there, and they're in there to keep you safe, like, for your safety. And so it always gives me an immediate red flag when a professional comes out in the community and is really sketchy about their credentials. It gives me the ick, because there's no reason to be weird about it. Like, there's no reason to be weird about it, because if you're doing that, I'm assuming you're a coach and you're not actually licensed. And there are good coaches out there, but don't pretend to be a therapist.
Right.
And it's dangerous because it's leading people to believe that you are experienced and operating under ethical requirements that you are not. Like, there is a distinction between somebody who has a degree in, like, psychology, or even has a PhD in psychology or a PhD in social work, and actually practicing and being licensed to do that. Because you can have the degree and not be allowed to see people because you're not clinical minded. You like macro work. You want to do research. Like, there's plenty you can do to contribute in that way, but you don't pretend that you're licensed in doing that. And so I don't ever want to, like, discredit another professional. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I don't generally do that. But I have seen the harm that has been caused by people pretending to be operating under certain credentials when they're not, saying they're a therapist when they're actually on probation and operating under a coaching paradigm. That's dangerous. And so that's why we talk about this. It's not me being a bitch. It's like, we have to protect the consumer. We have to protect the client. We have to protect those people because generally speaking, they're not as well versed as, like, a professional like her and I, right?
Well, and you think about the kind of people that she is trying to reach when you read that bio. Those are extreme people who have already experienced extreme hardship, who have extreme trauma,
vulnerability.
And if somebody is out here and they're touting to be a person that they actually aren't. They're touting to have credentials that they don't have, and possibly could do additional harm. I'm not saying that's what they're doing right now, but could possibly do additional harm to these people who have already been through the ringer. There is nothing that these people would be able to do. No courses of action that they could take against a person who has done them wrong under the guise
their information,
of being a professional, right?
Does something unethical. Like, there's a plentiful amount of things that can go wrong, and these protections are there to not only protect the client, but to also protect the therapist. It concerns me from that standpoint because it's like, clearly one of them watched the video. And Meredith's response was canned to me, and it sounded like Britt, not Meredith. And so I almost wonder if Meredith wrote it, which makes me believe that she did watch it. And personally, like, okay, let's say I didn't have the internet presence I do, and somebody wasn't aware and, like, didn't look up my license or didn't know how to do it. And they came out here on God's internet and said, hey, I don't think you're qualified. I don't think you're licensed. Bitch, I would correct that shit so fast.
Instantly.
Like, I would be on here immediately to make sure that people understand, here is my license. I am associate licensed in the state of Utah. Here is what I do. Here's the populations I work for. Here is the agency that I work with. Like,
the diploma I received for my MSW at the University of Utah.
Yeah, like, here is my master's degree. Like, I would rectify that shit so fucking fast. And so it is an immediate red flag for me that we come out here, not on God's internet, on Beyonce's internet, and say, this is an issue, just correct it. I'm like, bitch, I will put on the brakes and I will leave your ass alone if you can get on here and tell me where your credentials come from and where your license is. Because it might be different in another country, but just tell me that. Just be like, bitch, you're dumb. You don't know how to look it up in the
Panama,
UK.
in the UK. Yeah,
and I'm
seriously.
Like, totally fair. Let me issue a correction. I will gladly sit here and say, guys, we had it wrong. Let me clarify. Especially if she's qualified in these areas. Perinatal, particularly, is an area of such high need and demand. I will happily push people your way. Like, I will be a girl's girl here, but you are not allowing me to do that because you're just giving me sketch after sketch situation and then not making any effort to clarify. Because, like, I would be so dignified if I were Meredith or her and I had those credentials and I'd be like, I'm going to own this bitch right now. Like, sit back.
Dude, right?
Let's go.
I live to hit people like that on the internet in the comments.
And nope. I didn't get any of that.
Nothing. It was just, low-key, you're a narcissist. Okay.
Like, whatever. Okay.
So anyway, we started digging.
You gave me no choice. And again, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just looking up what's on the internet about you and having to dig further in the Google search than I normally would because nothing's coming up.
Remember how I was speculating that name has to be fake? Like, it has to be a pseudonym. Like, it's too on the nose. Well, I am happy to admit in this very moment, guys, I was wrong. But I was only wrong for one day because the day before our video went live, Britain's name was legally changed to Britain fairly.
I can't make it up.
So I don't even remember when we filmed the video, but whenever we filmed it, I could have been right in that moment, but as soon as it was edited and we had uploaded it, I was already wrong.
Here's the deal. I didn't do any like crazy research jujitsu to find this information. Now, here's where McKay and I had a conversation about this. There are plenty of reasons people change their names, and we're not here to get into the possible reasons why one might do that. But let's say there is a legitimate, like, safety concern for a name change. Let's say that. So I'm going to give this woman the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not going to say what her actual name is. I'm just going to tell you, because I have the actual certificate stamped and sealed by the county in which she applied for it, that says that name is no longer her name anymore.
So there's no reason to speculate her name is, in fact, Britain fairly. However, that's where this conversation about, like, is she changing her name to keep herself safe or what? Because the name's not really that different, for one.
And it's all over the internet because of your book.
Right. And secondly, we were like, if she's trying to keep herself safe, why is she hitching her wagon to someone who has 4 million views or 4 million subscribers? The math is not mathing,
right?
So obviously if that's the case, maybe reevaluate your circumstances and take a more offline approach, because, you know, blasting where you're at and what you're doing and all that to the world is not going to help you like stay away from someone who's harmful. And I know that she's been harmed in the past. She said so.
And so maybe that name's associated with something harmful and she wanted to drop it. And maybe that was the main reason. But like, you can't blame me for being weirded out by this whole process when I'm like, I don't think that's your name. And then I learned that it's actually not.
Right.
Or like, it wasn't one day before we filmed our video.
And so that led to other things like her place of birth. Maryland, not
she was
the
not
UK
born in
or anything like that. And we could find other things about her. I know that her father, I'm not going to say what he does, or I know that he's licensed. He has a professional license here in the state of Colorado, which is was kind of freaky. Like, her dad has been licensed and practicing here in the state of Colorado since like 1996. So for her to have an accent, like, I don't know what they were doing before 1996. She would have been a teenager around then. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that she would have been living somewhere continually like the UK where she would develop an accent like that.
I think we could reasonably see something like mission trips, like Christian mission trips, where they go to like various countries.
What her dad does, it does make sense that they would go on mission trips, and it
certainly,
if she's really Christian or whatever, and they have those kinds of means, I wouldn't doubt that. But like, if you're there for a couple weeks, like, you're not developing an accent. I was in Honduras for 2 straight years. Most of the time, my companion spoke Spanish. So I spoke Spanish most of the time. If I had any sort of an accent, it was gone in a week.
Yeah. And that's 2 years.
So, like...
And who knows? Maybe in her adult life, like, maybe she decided to, like... Maybe she got a degree in another country. Like, maybe she went and, like...
even then...
Did, like a 6-year degree. PhD's a long time.
If you're speaking the same language, then I don't see you developing much of an accent in that.
It seems weird. It seems weird.
As an adult. So it seems unlikely that she actually has an accent. So, like, is this all just her assuming the pseudonym that she chose as an author and kind of playing up the whimsy with a little bit of an accent, which is
whimsical.
At the very least, everybody's like, this is the worst fucking British accent that I've ever heard. Which, if you're gonna pick an accent, don't pick the one that everybody hears in every other single movie that is in the theater. Yeah, people are generally pretty familiar, and when you're not really melding with that, it's
Well, in the process,
anyway, that's beside the point.
Is also new because, like I said, like the name change was finalized the day before we filmed our video, which was completely unintentional, right? Like, we had no idea about any of this at the time. But she had initiated the name change process in April of 2024. And, like, as you know, legal stuff takes time. And so this has been something that has been in the works since April of 2024. So I just wanted to illustrate, like, this is a very new thing.
Right.
Like, this is not something like she changed her name like 2 decades ago and I'm now digging it up. Like, this happened like last year. Like, this happened a few months ago.
If somebody can kind of like low-key fit, and if she did live there, great. I feel like there would be pictures that she would share of her from her upbringing in England or whatever.
And maybe. But the other point that this brings up, okay, so I found out about her name change in August. So we've been hanging on to this information since August of last year. But when I found that, like, what I did was I was like, okay, this makes sense if you think of a licensing database, because a licensing database isn't going to be in the name that she's recently changed to a few months ago. Her license is going to be in her previous name.
Although it should reflect a name change.
She should change it if that's the case. But when I looked up, the states that are associated with her, like Colorado, Florida,
California, I guess a little bit.
Like, I looked, like, she's been to California with Meredith. I have no idea if she even has a history there. But I looked up the places that would most likely make sense, and I searched that name in the Florida database, and I couldn't find anything. I searched that name in the Colorado database, and I couldn't find anything. So either, like, I have spelling wrong, which I'm pretty sure I don't because I have the certificate from the judge. Like,
you'd think that if there were certifications, licenses in the United States that we could point to, they would have turned up by now.
And so the only, like, credit that I'll potentially give her in this situation is she exists in a database that I didn't search, in a state that I didn't search in, or in a country that I didn't search in. But even that still doesn't make sense to me, because why wouldn't you just tell me that? Like, why are you just ignoring this and letting me say all these things about you if they're not accurate? Like, I'm not defaming you. I'm not lying. I'm presenting information that's happening right now and saying, here's what I have. Here's what exists on the internet legally by the judge. And I can't find anything.
Which is weird.
So where do I go from there? Like, where do I go from there? I have nothing that I can do in terms of verifying you're actually who you say you are.
And you low-key are kind of obfuscating that by assuming a new name and giving a little accent that
is kind of weird.
Is weird. So, like,
it's weird.
I don't know. It's just when people are okay with kind of making up or playing up a story about where they come from or who they are, where's the line about what they're willing to kind of make up or play up?
Well, and additionally, like, I was just confused because, like, usually you search people, and especially if they have like their own private practice or if they have a business, like usually you're able to find that. And I couldn't find any of that information under the name that I had. Like I couldn't find anything under Brighton Fairley because it's not under Brighton Fairley. It's under her actual name. And so when I had her actual name and started going through her previous name and going through business affiliations and things, like there are multiple like LLCs that popped up that are tied to her and her sister and her parents. But I couldn't find like any information on like what these are. So the only one that I was able to like potentially verify what it actually was one that she created in Colorado. And it was called Smiling Hands. And it was like an ASL type thing. So I don't know if she knows ASL and she was teaching it, or if there was like something along those lines, which not abnormal. Like,
yeah,
great. I don't care about that. Like, that's not abnormal. If that was the only thing I found, like, whatever. But there's 2 other organizations that are listed on here that are attached to her, and some of them her and her sister, and some of them her and her parents, that I can't find any information on. So, like, one of them is called Grace Enterprises International, LLC. This is based out of, like, the business operation address is in Florida. It's not an actual business. It's attached to a P.O. box. And so there's not an actual business here. But when you search Grace Enterprises International, there's, like, an actual company that's called, like, Grace Enterprises International. But it's like an established company that I don't think has anything to do with Brit. But I also don't know, like, what this is. So, like, it's weird to me that, like, I can't find anything here. Because, like, sometimes you'll see that for content creation. Like, you won't necessarily find a website necessarily associated with our LLC name. Right. But it's because we have a different name for our LLC than what our actual channel name is. But it serves the purpose to connect our business to the channel, right? So, like, maybe I'm just missing something, but, like, she doesn't really do content creation.
Right.
Like, aside from, like, these little random things with Meredith. But then she also has this ministry, right? Like, there's this alleged ministry that Meredith talks about where she's, like, giving hats to babies and blessing them.
Giving hats to babies sounds fake.
To support and help women and babies in places where they don't get the kind of support and help that we do, and you're getting to change their life and touch their heart and their soul.
They knit a hat for every baby and pray a blessing over it. They anoint the babies' heads in a bedside baby shower, and they say, "We warm heads and hearts to know their worth in Christ."
But, like, there's no, and I don't doubt that, like, she does volunteer work or goes to these countries to do those things. Like, that's great. I don't care. That's fine. But, like, what are these LLCs? And then there's an additional LLC that's based out of, additionally, Florida, which is called Truly Free LLC. And there's, like, no true elaboration on, like, what these are doing. And some of them have been associated with, like, the Colorado versus kind of the Florida, but they're both kind of primarily based out of Florida now for all the filings. But I can't find anything for Truly Free LLC either. Other than, like, you search the name and the LLC page that pops up telling you that there's an LLC with that name in Florida. Like, I can't find anything about, like, what that is, what that does, and that's tied to the same UPS store, which is, like, you know, just the P.O. box that you use for business filings. And so, like, there's not an actual store or anything going on there. And if you have a ministry, like, why wouldn't you promote that?
Right.
Like, why can't I find anything about what the fuck it is you do?
When you think that with a ministry, there'd be, like, a 501c3 or
right.
something.
It's like a very elaborate
tax
process.
Exemption.
Yeah. Which I'd be thrilled to see.
501c3 for...
They do, for nonprofits.
For religious?
I think so.
Whatever the filing is. I'm no tax expert. But
that's a lot of work, and I would have been like, yeah, okay,
right.
Fair. But, like, I can't find anything about that. So,
it's
like,
just a lot of weirdness.
Have I sufficiently given you enough information to be weirded out by what's happening here? Now, again, let me be clear. I'm not saying anything nasty is happening. I'm not saying anything criminal or necessarily even unethical is happening. I'm just weirded out.
I mean, if there's nothing unethical about what's going on, you know, just
clear it up.
Clear it up. Leaving a comment attacking us on when we're raising
Meredith
concerns is just, like, not helping the situation.
No, it's not. And it just kind of, like, you know, it's when people are guilty about, like, you know, they're like, no, I didn't do that. And then you confront them and are like, hey, this is an issue. And then they get like super defensive and you're like, okay, well, it kind of feels like you did.
Right.
Because you're really defensive about it. Again, I'm not implying that that's what's happening here, but like it's weird behavior when it's like something that could seemingly be easily corrected. But like you can't just call yourself a trauma counselor. You can't just do those things. I don't understand why you wouldn't just fucking correct me if I was wrong in that.
Right.
Because again, I'm not saying anything that's defamatory. I'm putting out the information that you've put out on the internet and asking for clarification. I can't do anything beyond that.
It could very easily be cleared up. Anyway, moving on from that whole weirdness, let's get into the weirdness of what they've been posting recently, because it was kind of interesting, especially over the Christmas season.
Again, we've got like weird accent kind of in and out here, a little bit more prevalent than other videos. This was filmed in October of 2024. As in terms of like therapeutically, emotional freedom tapping is a evidence-based practice for stress management, coping skills, things of that nature. It's not something that I personally use. My own therapist is trained in EFT and uses it. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it. It's not something that I'm super well versed in, but it is like an actual therapeutic technique. So like there's nothing like glaringly necessarily weird therapeutically for me here.
Maybe it's at bordering on woo-woo a little bit.
It is a little bit like on the woo-woo side. I think there is some evidence to it's different, like emotional freedom tapping. I'm not super familiar with it. You'd have to kind of do your own research on it. It's not a modality that I'm trained in. But it's gonna like it feels more woo-woo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a woo-woo therapist, so like it makes sense. And if it's helpful for you, like that's really all that matters, right? It's not causing any harm. It's helpful for you. Like that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're looking for. So I don't necessarily have a problem with anything happening here.
When in doubt, tap it out. We're going to show you how to tap your way into emotional freedom using 8 acupressure points.
That's right, Mara, exactly. So the first thing we want to start out by doing is identifying what that stressor or anxiety is.
Okay.
So for instance, we just came through a category 4 hurricane, right?
That can instill a lot of anxiety and feelings of overwhelm.
Right. And sometimes people have emotional storms raging inside. So you can use this to reduce anxiety, reduce depression, reduce stress. So the first thing we need to do to reduce that anxiety and stress is we need to identify what's stressing us out. We start with what's called a setup statement. Mary, could you set up the statement for us?
Yes. So for example, it would be, even though I'm feeling anxiety or stress about the storm, the Lord is my protector and takes care of what concerns me.
Right. That's so great. And actually what we did there was we reframed, or we added a faith-based component to the cognitive reframing piece of this exercise, because there's a lot of times where we cannot fully love and accept ourselves, and this is just a way to release the burden. There's a bug. Release the burden and just let the Lord really envelop us in his peace.
The comments, if you look back at the comments on YouTube, this is one of the only videos that she didn't turn off comments for, by the way. So just want to point out some of the things that are said in this comment section. Something about this relationship does not sit right with me. What people didn't notice too is the fact that Meredith unfollowed her mother and some of her family members. She was not at her actual sister's wedding a couple of days ago. Can't verify that. The wig lady separated her from her own family. I've been a full-grown Christian my whole life and I'm 38. I love you, Mary, but I'm afraid this isn't it. You're better than this. This isn't biblical. This is cult-like.
Which is wild when they're like talking about kind of what I would...
therapeutic technique.
Yeah, things that are helpful to people. And then this is where I feel like we kind of get into the weeds when we start throwing around the term cult.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is...
You're referring to New Age.
Yeah. That like it's kind of melded with like everybody says it but means low-key a different thing.
Yeah.
Where like in this instance they're like New Age, it's a cult.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other people are like, you are in this very niche Christian kind of framework, you're in a cult. I don't know, it's tough. That's neither here nor there. That's just my 2 cents.
So I thought the New Age part of this was interesting. You're always going to have people that are like weird about that kind of stuff, even though I'm like, it's a coping skill. If it helps you, who fucking cares? And then like just other comments that are highlighting, as a Christian, are you okay? Something about the woman with you is very off. I'll be praying for you. She's like shaming Meredith for making mistakes in this video. This is a weird dynamic. Is that lady holding you hostage? Another Netflix documentary shall follow once this all goes down, unfortunately. Like, so I don't necessarily have beef with anything that's happening in this video, but here's where this could get dicey, okay? Let's say hypothetically that the relationship between these two is unhealthy and there is some weirdness happening here. Could be leveraging therapeutic tactics to get somebody to not question you, to not have boundaries with you, to get really codependent and enmeshed with you. Like, that is why we're like, hey, casual relationships with a person who once maybe was your counselor is not allowed, not okay, and highly inappropriate. And even if Meredith isn't acting, even if Brighton isn't acting as her counselor here, it's kind of giving that vibe. And it gave that vibe in the first video, which is why everybody was like really sussed out about this. So I think that's where there's some additional concern here, where it's like, I don't think that's necessarily what's happening. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who's to say? But if that is happening, that's dually concerning because there's a power dynamic there.
Right. Well, and it brings back to that now we know even more about the situation of Jody and Ruby Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jody leveraged those credentials essentially into like she was helping Ruby's son out in a therapeutic relationship, and then she was kind of, you know, placating Ruby's sensibilities about how she's parenting, all the way to the point where they're sharing a bed in her daughter's room.
Gaslighting, coercion, manipulation.
Obviously, I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but like, it is it's worrisome when you see some of the same patterns.
And then November 2024, we go back to her Instagram.
Did you know God does not cover up, ignore, unjustly blame, or shame the victim?
Actually, scripture shows that the Lord takes up the cause of the sexual assault survivor. He was revolutionary in preserving the dignity of women, recognizing as a violent, premeditated crime where the attacker alone is held guilty and the victim is completely blameless.
In fact, Deuteronomy 22:25-27 creates an ethical framework to respond to sexual assault where the isolated woman is believed based on her testimony, regardless of witness. This is important to remember because sexual violence is often perpetrated in isolation, seclusion, and secrecy.
Exactly. Scripture actually set a vital precedent for the survivor to be heard and believed, and compels us to treat accusations of sexual assault as credible and to defend the dignity of every sexual assault survivor, especially the one who breaks the silence about being.
Let's follow the Lord's lead and create a safe place for victims to be heard, believed, defended, and protected.
Because Jesus
supports the survivor.
Amen.
Okay, aside from the spelling errors and the weirdly placed bitmojis on a very serious topic, I don't necessarily have beef here. Like, I love when people can use like their religious framework to support things like this so that women do feel like their religious leaders are on their side when they're pursuing something that may be unpopular. Like, you know, there's lots of shame around coming forward around sexual assault and doing things like that. So I don't really have any beef with anything here. Like, therapeutically, there's not anything in here that I would like have an issue with or would say that's inaccurate. They also link to RAIN, which is a really good resource for like those kinds of resources and information, domestic violence, those kinds of things. And so it's just kind of weird. That video was in November. Come December, this is the one that everybody sent to me. I got this in like droves in our DMs because I don't follow Meredith. You guys just keep me up to date when things happen. And my initial first impression, I'm a girl's girl through and through. Like, you know, we haven't even mentioned Brighton's wig at all yet in this video, okay? You do you. That's your vibe. You feel comfortable. You feel confident. Whatever. That's fine.
Go for it.
If this isn't some like Messianic thing, fine. But my first impression of this video was Meredith looks different. Like, Meredith looks different to me. Like, her eyes look different. Like, they look swollen almost. She looks very tired. Which I've seen a bunch of her videos now, right? Like I've seen her content many times before. And the majority of the feedback that I was getting from people who were sending this to me was like, something looks really off here. Like something looks really weird here. And maybe it's the heaviness of the content, but like it just seems sus to me. The like, if I was like, this feels like very sad energy in this video, which like you're talking about a sad topic, that's fine. But like we just listened to them talk about sexual assault and they were both like throwing Bitmojis on the screen.
Right.
So it doesn't seem that serious, like in the sense of like we're really sad about it. It's like this is a serious topic, but we're here to be informative and like somewhat uplifting, right? Yeah. It's not the vibe that I got with this video, which makes me wonder like why are we filming it? And we start out the video with Meredith like saying this just right out of the gate.
Have you ever been pinned down or smothered or choked until you blacked out? I have. And this is really hard stuff to talk about, but I want to give you guys resources. Or maybe you've been verbally attacked so often that you were convinced that you were completely worthless and that you're incapable of doing anything right. And that's exactly where I was.
Yeah, me too. But the truth is, you deserve so much better.
They also read off a script the whole time. I can see their eyes tracking on the screen.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like sometimes we do script reading, sometimes too. But
you can tell when I do it.
Yeah, like we're not above script reading by any means, you know. Helps keep your thoughts organized, whatever. But it's kind of weird to me when she needs to read a script of her own experience.
Yeah, that.
I'm not saying that's not her experience, but like, why is it like that? Again, I don't want to come off like because I absolutely believe her. You know, I took a gander at her mom's Twitter account the other day, and she's like MAGA crazy, like unhinged, RFK, vaccines cause autism, COVID was a hoax, like, you know, every like very right-leaning thing you could possibly think of, she's spewing all over her Twitter in her red MAGA hat in her profile picture. And so like her mom is quite the character, so I believe her 100% if she says that her mom was abusive. I believe people when they say that their parents and their experiences are abusive. I'm just, the way this is being presented is weird to me. I don't disbelieve the content. I'm weirded out by how this is being presented.
Yeah.
Love that they linked the domestic violence hotline number in there.
Yeah.
Love that they're actually linking like legitimate resources and not like weird Christian ones that don't actually do anything. So I'll at least give them that. So this is followed by a video that we can't play the audio for.
Right.
Because it's a very popular Christmas song. This was the next day. But then they posted Meredith and some random people at the Christmas tree farm.
Well, they seem to be Brits.
My heart is a Christmas tree. Okay. So they seem to be Britons, what I'm assuming to be her family. We know that because one of the photos, I can only identify one of these people for sure. And I think we talked about this in the second video. And it was because they all went to that film showing of Candace Cameron's weird movie.
Yeah.
And her family member, whoever it is, daughter, sister, who knows, niece, whatever, was labeled in the, like, who's in this photo. Like, I'll have McKay put it up on the screen so you can see it. So there's overlap. And if you remember, Meredith called that girl in that opening credit, like she was also in the opening credits of the video, called her niece. So
yeah,
I mean, that would make sense that it would be Britain's daughter in that context because they treat each other as sisters. They've said they're sisters, whatever the that means. So like, this is just like interesting to me because it's like, this feels like family content.
Right.
This feels like I'm with my family and we're cutting down the tree and decorating everything. And
which, I mean, if she doesn't want to spend family with her MAGA,
with her mom, I don't fucking blame her.
Right-wing freak mom.
Especially if she was abusive, like, that's fair.
Yeah.
But it's like,
assimilate with my family.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
You reached out to me about my book a couple years ago.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
Stay in my house for an extended period of time, presumably, because they're filming videos the entire month of December.
Yeah. Hi, this is McKay from editing. Don't bother with the heater in the background. While we were editing this, we realized that she was talking about the hurricane in that video about EFT. That was back in October. So she is in Florida a lot.
For most of December, like multiple videos recorded in December.
And I mean, it seems like they're traveling.
We have pictures from Meredith's Instagram where they're in Nashville. They're in Florida.
They're in California.
LA. DC for like political stuff. So like, again, this is where I'm like, girl, you got like a trust fund?
Right? Well, I don't know. She's got 4 million subscribers.
Well,
on
Meredith
YouTube.
has money.
Yeah.
But I'm like, where is, like, to just travel all the time?
Seriously.
That's fascinating to me.
I don't imagine they're making a lot of money off of YouTube compared to.
Well, Meredith doesn't make any content anymore. She posts like every once in a while in their short videos, and who even knows if they're actually monetized or not. So it's not like Meredith's living off of YouTube, and she's not posting like any brand content or sponsorships or anything on YouTube. And mind you, she's been a YouTube influencer for a long time, so she could have like a decent amount of money saved up. Who knows? But that also, like, that's where the financial stuff sort of starts to get icky to me too, because like we had that with Jody and Ruby, right, where there's like some financial things and weirdness happening between the two of them.
Yeah.
Even though they were both fairly wealthy, like there's just some weirdness there where like in a friend or even sisterly relationship, like I don't know anybody who travels with their sister all the time, unless you're like a travel influencer.
Right. And then I don't think it's going to be your sibling most of the time.
No, not usually. So that's just kind of weird, right? So an interesting observation that we need to bring up here is the wig era seems to be gone.
Wig era over.
Which, like, you know, if you're struggling with self-confidence and wigs make you feel better, like,
whatever.
Who cares? Like, that's great. I love that for you. There's no issue there. And so if she's feeling confident to not wear it, or like, you know, you had cancer or something and you lost all your hair and it's been different getting accustomed to like your hair texture when it comes back, like something like that I could see. But it's almost like it's like persona switch almost, it feels like, again, because it's like when people initially sent me these videos, I didn't even recognize her initially because she does look very different.
Yeah. That, I mean, last time we made a video about this, we didn't want to hit too much on the wig thing.
Because allegedly she had cancer and lost her hair or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Like, I get that. We don't want to shame the wig game if that makes you feel more confident. But I did find it weird that it's gone.
Yeah, it is interesting that we're out of the wig era.
Except in the tapping video. But that was in October, and it hasn't made a resurgence since, it seems. So Meredith posted quite a bit of videos in, like, during the holiday season. Yeah. Especially. And it seemed like, and it could just be the timing of the way that it was posted, but it seemed like she spent the entire holiday with Brighton and her, what I assume to be her family. I know I've said, like, do drink to how many times I say weird in this video and you'll die, but, like, something is off here.
It's just weird to be that involved.
It feels like enmeshment to me. And then it extends, because we go from that to, like, well, first of all, we need to talk about sort of the Jewish Messianic video that we will play for you. I would love to talk about this more in depth for time's sake, because I am not the authority on this.
Obviously not.
This is not my area of expertise by any means. And so I wanted to lean on the people in our community who actually can speak to this. And so for time's sake, I'm going to include a few screenshots where a few people from our Discord, 3 lovely folks, talked about what the whole kind of Messianic movement is and what it does and why it's something that needs to be discussed for the harm that it does, and why Brighton and Meredith potentially participating in, like, a Messianic way, if that's really what's happening, which it seems like it is, why that's harmful. So I will include some of their screenshots, and if you'd like, you can go into our Discord and go into the Meredith Foster channel, and you can read all about their perspectives additionally on this issue. I don't want to be the one that takes up space on this issue, because this is not my area of expertise, but I do want to highlight their voices and to thank them for being willing to speak on this, because I know it's not their job or even their emotional burden, but I appreciate them lending their perspective in this way. So she posted a lot of videos like that. It's giving too interconnected. It's giving lack of boundaries with this person that you don't really know. you haven't known for very long, and that, you know, that's me being judgmental. This is my opinion. That's fine. You can think it's whatever, but it's weird to me. And then we have additional videos that were filmed after that, more recent, where it seems Meredith and Brighton took a trip to Panama, where they were potentially doing something maybe nonprofit or ministry related, because part of Meredith's video is them at a hospital in Panama and like in the maternity ward, and like looked like picking out baby clothes and giving them to him. And I'm like, I love the idea, but I'm also like, I remember, because, you know, I am a mom, so I do remember what it was like after I gave birth. And if like two random, very peppy, Messianic, Christian, weird women walked into my room looking like the two of them, like bubbly as all get, I would be like, get out.
Send them out.
I don't want anything from you. And so that's just me.
Right.
Because I just went through hell and back, and I don't want two fucking strangers beyond the entire medical staff that has to tend to me in my room. So it's not to take away from the fact that they're potentially doing a nice thing, buying clothes for potentially children in need, buying clothes for baby moms who can't afford it.
Low-key, kind of a touristy vacation.
And it's like a weird...
The same. I think it's worth noting that Britt's sister
potentially lives or
operates some sort of
she moves her car there
program.
A lot.
Yeah, her Jaguar, which in Panama.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
And
allegedly
enter the concept of like white saviorism, and this is something that I know about because I lived as a missionary for 2 years in Honduras. And I understand
on the Lord's errand.
Where I thought that I was helping people by preaching the Mormon gospel. And I full on recognize that that was not helping at all. If anything, I was helping the church separate people from what little capital they already had so that it could go into the giant fund and they could build their lavish temples and whatnot. Anyway, but like there's that whole white savior complex situation, and it's a tough line to toe, right? Because obviously I believe that people in developing nations have just as much right to receive help as people here in the United States or other developed nations, but it's all about the perspective and going and creating content with people that you're helping. I feel like is just...
They included kids in those videos. Did you get permission?
Yeah.
You're including minors? Minors who, like, do they understand and do the parent, like, do Meredith or Brighton speak Spanish? Like, you're fluent in Spanish. At least you spoke the fucking language.
Yeah.
But, and who knows, maybe they do. But it's like, to me, that's just inappropriate. Like, if it's performative. Performative is the word I'm looking for. It's performative. Like, you're putting these kids on your platform, and you don't just have, like, a teeny tiny platform.
Yeah, and then
you have millions of followers.
Right. And then you just pack it up and you go back to your home in Orlando or Britt's home, whatever.
Like, what is that? What the fuck is that? And also, like, if this is the ministry, like, what is it?
Yeah, what exactly?
What is happening here?
Because it seems like you just went there, you looked at the hospital, and then you dropped off clothes, which, you know, is great in some aspect. I'd rather that babies don't go without.
Sure.
But I don't know. It just seemed like it was kind of like a vacation with, you know, doing
well, and why is she going
some charitable donations
with this random person to a different country? I don't know. There are people who are going to think I'm out of line here, but I'm
very critical of myself for the missionary work that I did. I am, however, extremely grateful with how it shaped my worldview and changed because I have that basically to thank for being able to leave Mormonism because of, you know, how my worldview shifted. But like to be able to do that and go and like, I don't know. I really hope that she doesn't espouse some of the same views that her mother does in regard to immigration and things like that, because that changed me. That experience changed my whole perception on that issue, and I'm overwhelmingly in favor of people being able to come here and exist here without having to jump through a billion hoops and everything like that. And I've known personally several people who made it here undocumented and have, you know, recounted that entire experience to me, and it changes you, trust me.
But I think the difference there is you are probably able to engage critically with that experience.
Over the long period of time that I was there, yeah.
Where, well, and even after, where most people are like, well, I'm doing good, so, like, why are you bitching about it? You're not doing anything. You're sitting on your ass. Like, it's more nuanced than that.
Right. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. Obviously, I don't know how Meredith feels about the immigration subject and the mass deportations that are going on right now and everything like that.
Britain and basically everybody in her circle are registered as Republicans because that's public information in Florida.
Yeah.
So that basically tells me everything that I need to know there. I mean, the pro-life stance, hello.
Yeah.
Which is also incompatible with Judaism.
Yeah. Anyway. I think that's where we'll leave it. There's just a lot of concerning thing that is continuing to go on. And, like, I thought maybe something would change, but I guess
nothing's changing, and it seems to get weirder.
That's on me for being stupid.
And who knows? Maybe nothing nefarious. I don't think necessarily something nefarious is happening. I just am picking up on weird vibes and energy, and I think there are some things here that are legitimately concerning that could be easily corrected.
Remedied. Yeah.
Like, easily remedied. I want to be a girl's girl. I want to lift other people in this profession up, but you're making it really hard to do so.
You can't blame us for watching that whole Ruby and Jody thing going down and being completely powerless, and then see other weird similar patterns that are happening in other places and not want to talk about it.
And not be like, hey, that's weird. Like, maybe just parallels and they're innocuous and nothing comes of it, but like...
Everything's innocuous until it isn't.
Right. And, like, that's what we do, is kind of observe and point out. And, you know, we would have ditched this concept, I think. We were very hesitant on this just because it's, like, elaborate and a lot of research. And I think we would have ditched this concept had it not be the overwhelming public response that is in agreement with our opinion. Like, you look at these videos and even, like, her own grandmother. Like, let me read that screenshot. So let me read this comment that Meredith's grandmother left on one of her videos. Meredith, I love the video that you put on. It's so joyful and you look so happy and having fun with people that are having fun. I hope this is what you need and that everything is working out for you. That sentence is weird to me. I love you very much and I just want to see you happy. I think she said Brett here, but I wonder if she means Brit. Thank Brett for sending me those wonderful pictures of you on your birthday. Your cake looks yummy, and tell Brit that I'm old school too, so I appreciated her writing that wonderful note.
Now, as people who have had to cut people off that are familial relation, that are toxic.
Yeah. We're not above that at all.
Like Meredith's family kind of, or at least her mother kind of seems.
Sus.
That is in accordance with the kind of stuff that somebody like that would post.
But this is her grandma.
Her grandma saying that, and then also saying that she's in contact in some form.
Why is
with
Brit writing her a letter?
Is weird. It's weird.
Like, why is there being a letter exchanged here? And, like, I know this is her grandma because she signs it, "Love you, Grandma." And it says, like, it looks like you're a part of a big church group, so I know you're getting a lot of support, and I think you're doing good things for other people. Like, take care of yourself and have a blessed Christmas. And, like, Meredith liked it. And her grandma is commenting on, like, all her things. But that caught my eye because I'm like, why is this random person in your life sending your grandma a letter? And also, she spent her birthday with them additionally. So another holiday, another important tradition with these people, with this person.
It's just weird. It's just weird. I don't like it.
I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are. I don't.
Obviously, if Meredith is going to see this one again, prove us wrong.
Girl, I ain't got beef with you.
We will take videos down. We will retract whatever.
We'll fix it.
If Britt can just tell us exactly, if she is who she says she is, then.
And give me verifiable. I don't want like bullshit Photoshop documents. I don't want like
tell us
she went to this school. Like I want proof. Like you're gonna send me proof. If I have to have my license public, then so do you. So like give me the proof and I will delete my videos and we will leave you the fuck alone. Like that's it.
Great claims require great evidence.
I mean, I'm sorry that Brighton's learning the hard way how to be on the internet, but we get hate every fucking day. And this is what you get when you get on the internet. And so I'm sorry that she's having this kind of hard reality. But when there are thousands of people, and I don't hesitate to say thousands because I've seen the videos, I've seen the comments. There are thousands of people who are like, this is weird. This behavior is off. This relationship feels icky. What is happening here? Like when you have thousands of people turning their heads, like if you just had me and McKay, I could see being like, okay, calm down, guys. Like you think you're important. Chill. Okay. But it's not. And I wouldn't have even done this video if we didn't have like a ton of people in my DMs all the time that are like, when is the Meredith update coming? Did you see that new Meredith video? Sending me your videos that you're posting. Like all of that is happening and all of these people are seeing it. And there's like our videos about this on TikTok have millions of views and thousands of comments from people that are like, this feels like Ruby and Jody energy. Again, not saying anything criminal or nefarious is happening, but the mannerisms are similar. Like weird shit going on. And so fix it. Give me proof. And, to be fair, you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I'm just a random person on the internet. So if you don't ever send me anything, that's fucking fine. But these videos aren't going to go anywhere.
Anyway.
So let us know in the comments what you think the fuck is going on.
We would love to know.
What the fuck is going on?
What is happening?
And of course, if you see weird things, if you find stuff, if you have opinions, like our Discord has a Meredith Foster channel, so you can update me. I check it periodically. You can send me a DM. You can send us an email. We're open to all of that, and like you guys keeping us informed is part of the reason why these videos happen.
We appreciate everybody's, continued support and everything with that. So helps us keep up to date. And I don't know, we're kind of sitting on this for a while, and we're just like, you know what? I think the question begs to be asked, right?
Something's off.
So
something stinks.
Rapid fire, wrap it up for you. If you liked what you saw or you would like to see more of it, you can hit the subscribe button. Damn it.
Baloney.
Damn it, baloney. We've been trying to get you over here. You can hit that subscribe button. If you would like to, support us further, we have the membership or the Patreon option with a bunch of different tiers and benefits that you can get if you'd like to see more of us participate in our watch parties and things like that.
We have one coming up. We're going to be watching Mean Girls.
Oh, yeah. Check that out. And then you can also follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Jordan and McKay for both of those. And then we've mentioned it already in the video, but you can check out our awesome Discord community with the invitation link down in the description below. But we love you. You're awesome. Don't hitch your wagon to people who seem to be doing weird accents on the internet in their everyday lives. We love you, and we'll see you next time.